So focusing on plot again today, the main thing that I really want us to concentrate on is finding the climax. Okay, so what is the climax again? The oh my gosh moment, right? The turning point of the story. So yesterday when we were at the stranger, what was that oh my gosh moment? Especially for the stranger himself in the story. What was his oh my gosh moment? Good. Okay, when he goes to that top of that hill and he notices that everything to the north has already changed colors. It was red and orange. And it's like something clicked in his mind. Like he started to know who he was again. Okay, and then what was the very next scene? What did he do? Remember? Good. He grabbed a leaf, he blew on it, it changed the color. Okay? So that was our oh my gosh moment. That was the turning point of the story. The turning point meaning he now knew who he was. Okay, so he was going to be able to go back to his original life. Okay, so today we're going to read Old Henry. And again, I want you to be thinking about the plot, mainly the climax. What's the turning point for Old Henry in the story? Right? And then also, this one has a lesson you should be learning from it. Okay? A lesson we also call the what? The theme. Okay? Every story should have some sort of a theme that you can come up with. Do stories only have one theme? I mean, no, they can. They might only have one theme, but they can also have multiple themes, 2 themes, 3 themes. Okay, depending on who you talk to that read the story. Okay? So, Old Henry. Says, no one thought he meant to stay. The house was drafty, dark, and gray. And more than 7 years had passed since anyone had lived there last. Okay, so Old Henry buys this house. Is this a nice house that he's buying? No, okay. Someone hasn't lived there for 7 years. So if someone hasn't lived there for a while, it's probably not going to be kept up, right? So you would expect that Old Henry would do what when he moved in? Yeah, clean it, start fixing things up, right? He meant to stay, he had no doubt. It suited him from inside out. And in its fast and dusty spaces, all the things he had found places. That Henry. Has he started cleaning it? No. Okay, he kind of put his stuff away, but he hasn't started cleaning. Does anyone in here have a neighbor that they might live by that doesn't do any yard work or anything? Okay. Like I know I have a neighbor like that. And my wife's always like, well, why didn't they mow grass? Why can't they cut their bushes kind of thing? The neighbors watched him moving in and promised each other he'd soon begin to fix things up a bit. He did not think of it. Okay, so Henry doesn't sound like he's a big fixer-upper, right? He just moved in, he's comfortable. You think that's okay to be like that? No. No? Yes? No? With money enough to pay the rent, his books, birds, and cooking pots, he was content, and never did notice, or else didn't care, that people whispered everywhere, "That place is a disgrace." At least, they remarked, you would think that he could show a little respect for the neighborhood. That place is a disgrace. Okay, so the neighbors are talking. They expect him to do what?
Clean the house.
Clean up a little bit, right? And they say that the place is a disgrace. Now, who cleaned it up those 7 years that no one lived there? No one did, right? At last they decided to form a committee and went to him saying, "We are proud of our city. If you'd only help out, think how good it would look." "Excuse me," he bowed, and went back to his book. That Henry. Okay, so the neighbors show up. Does he care what they have to say to him? No, he could care less. Okay, all he cares about is going back to his life. Then they fined him fines, they threatened jail, they wrote him long letters and sent them by mail. Dear Henry. Okay, so the neighbors are extremely bothered by him, right? Does he seem fazed at all?
No.
No, not at all. Not yet, right? Would you guys be fazed if your neighbors were bothering you that much? Or would you not care? What do you think? Do you think you'd maybe like, oh, okay, maybe I should, clean up my flower beds or mow my grass, maybe? Okay, well, Henry doesn't care. Still the hollyhocks wilted, unwatered, unkept. The gatepost stayed crooked, the walk stayed unswept. And things went on as they had begun, and he angered his neighbors one by one. So unfriendly, he never talks. Can't we make him sweep his walks? No, there's nothing we can do. You nasty Polly, shoo bird, shoo. Okay, so the neighbors can't stand him. Do you think we've had a climax yet?
No.
Yeah, not really, right? So far, all the neighbors are doing are complaining. On a day in November, they sought the advice of the mayor who suggested being nice. Being nice? Please, try it twice. But when two of the ladies baked him a pie, he said, I'm not hungry, no thank you, goodbye. Okay, so now the neighbors are trying to be nice to him. Is Henry having any of it?
No.
No, he could care less. Okay, he still doesn't want to be bothered. And when three of the men said that they'd shovel his snow, he quickly said, no. We told you so. Now Henry, too, had had his fill. That night he grumbled, I never will live like the rest of them, neat and the same. I am sorry I came. Okay, so he doesn't want to be like them. He likes the way he is. Seems like he's kind of upset. It's kind of sad. He said, I'm sorry I came. Then he packed up his things in shopping bags and tied the rest in 3 old rags. He didn't make plans. He just left a short note, hastily written, gone to Dakota. He taped it to his big front door, and no one lived there anymore. They just got up, packed, left, just like that. His daylilies bloomed, his flocks grew tall. They picked his apples in the fall. They picked his apples, and now and then someone would ask, remember when? Remember when? Remember when? Later still, in winter snow, they asked one another, where did he go? Will he come again? Do you think he's happy now?
No.
His house looks so empty, so dark in the night, and having him gone doesn't make us more right. That Henry. Okay, so now the neighbors realized that they were what? They were wrong. They were probably a little too hard on him, right? Okay, because now they are starting to what? Feel guilty and miss him. They miss seeing lights on at nighttime. Okay? Maybe some other time we'd get along, not thinking that somebody has to be wrong. And we don't have to make such a terrible fuss because everyone isn't exactly like us. Meanwhile, old Henry, to his great surprise, was missing the neighbors who brought him the pies. In spite of their nagging, he really did care for them and their street. So he wrote the mayor. Okay, so now we find out that old Henry is missing his neighbors. Even though he felt like he was being harassed there for a while, now he's saying he's kind of missing that. He's missing his old street. He's missing his neighbors. Dear Mayor, I'm finding it hard to be far from my house and my tree and my yard. If I mended the gate and I shoveled the snow, would they not scold my birds? Could I let my grass grow? Please write and tell me the answers so then we can all get together. Sincerely yours, Henry. And that's how the story ends, just like that. Okay, so I want you to be thinking about what is the lesson we should be learning And really, what is the turning point of the story? All right, so go ahead and open up your questions from Canvas under Old Henry, and then we will talk about them shortly.